gonna, and I was just radically consistent. That's all I
Yeah.
was. And then it's just saying no to things. I think when you're disciplined and consistent and you stick with what you're doing and you stick with the plan, which I don't advise doing your own coaching if you're doing a show because you're going to question if you're doing the right thing. How many
Yeah,
times in my mind I was
100%.
just like, oh, it could be beneficial if I have some extra carbs today, or I do a refeed, and then it'll, give my body a little bit of a boost, and the grip on my fat stores will be loosened somewhat, and like, so all this stuff is going through my mind, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stick with this. So then I know if it works or not. And I'm like, if it doesn't
Hmm.
work, it doesn't work. So that's what I did. I stood with that, and the calories came down little by little. Try to keep my protein was high. My protein kept going actually higher as you're dieting down, which helps retain muscle. The
Hmm.
fats I tried to keep consistent throughout the entire thing because the majority of what our body needs is fat. All of our cells are covered in a membrane which is made of fat. Fat
Yeah.
is and cholesterol are used for hormones, every hormone in your body. So these are all like an important thing. So when people cut out, oh, my fat's really low, my carbs are really low, I'm like, dude, you're asking for problems. So
Yeah.
I'm taking what I know and I'm putting it into this process. And so I just started to bring down, that's literally all I did. I started at 3,000 calories and I started to bring my carbs down little by little. I think I only changed
Hmm.
my diet like 3 times. It was like every 3 or 4 weeks. Like, okay, I'm doing this. My body adapts to it. Boom, I'm going to change something else. I brought the carbs down. Cardio went up a little bit. And I just stick with that the whole time. And
Yeah.
so that's what did it. And then my last show, where I mean, I was probably around like 5% body fat, I want to say, maybe even more. It was enough to win the show, so I didn't really care. But
Yeah,
it
absolutely. That's
was,
all that matters.
yeah, I had a different approach with that because I hired a coach and he just kind of looked at me and would adjust things as I went. I didn't want to think about it. I just wanted to like put the work in, put my head down, and get through it. And that's what I did. But I started to train for that show more like an athlete, which was exciting. So we had this hill that my coach would take me to. It was like 45 degrees, like, and it was kind of paved, kind of not, but we would do sprints up
Yeah.
that hill. He had like a tire that he, tied around my waist, like to a rope, and
Hmm.
I would just drag that thing up the hill. And so I trained like a track athlete, which was really fun for me because it brought back the training days from high school. That I'm not
Hmm.
just in the gym, I'm an athlete. And he's like I coach my guys as athletes because that's what you are. If you're just in the
Yeah.
gym and you're just on the stair step or doing cardio, he's like, no, the guys at the pro level are doing this stuff. You just don't see it. Like they're
Hmm.
doing this extra stuff to get that detail, to get that really,
Yeah.
really good detail. So that's what I did for my last show. I mean, we can go in a bunch of different directions, but that's kind of summing up like getting to that lower body fat percentage. It was really just radical consistency and having a plan.
Yeah. And that's the most impressive thing. And I think a lot of people would be shocked when they hear you say it was a 12 to 13-week process because I don't think most people understand that you can make that shift in like 12 to 13 weeks. You can just be like cut up from the floor up and
Mhm.
you can make just like you said, that decision to have this plan, stick to it, and it's not a complicated plan. Like I'm sure you weren't having to, like you said, you adjusted your calories maybe 2, 3 times, and
Mhm.
you weren't having to. Well, maybe you were weighing your food, but I'm sure at a certain
Oh
point
yeah.
you understood. Like you could look at something and say, "Oh, that's probably like so many grams of this, or like that's probably so many ounces of that,"
Yep.
and put your food together in a way that you're able to consistently lose that weight. And it's
Mhm.
just the like set like a flint on where you're going and just
Mhm.
that decision like okay, this is the goal. At the end of it, this is where I'm going to be. And so what were the hard parts for like, and I know you said that questioning yourself, which is
Mhm.
I've done a cut maybe 4 or 5 times, and that's always the hardest part. Like if you don't
Mhm.
have someone telling you what you're doing or like reassuring you that this is why this is going to work, and you're just telling yourself like okay, I found this on the internet, I think this is right, and then you're in those times where you're just like starving and
Mhm.
don't you want the goal, but you also don't know how if you're messing this up, and so like how do you
Mhm.
get through those situations?
Yeah, that's where I mean, it was really a lot just a mental game. as you get through it. It's so much more mental than it's like. Of course, there's the physical component to it because I mean you're hungry. Like you get to that point where it's breaking through the wall of prep or any type of diet. And when I say that, it's you when you first start dieting, like I mean, most people know that if they're in the gym consistently, you have like that fullness, right? Because you're eating.
Yeah.
You have the roundness in
Hmm.
your muscles. The more muscle you have, the more like round you're going to look. You feel big. You got a really good pump at the gym, and that's pretty consistent. When you switch over into a fat loss protocol, then that starts to diminish. And within the
Yeah.
first month or so, you're not you're not like I mean you're going to be tapping into fat loss stores here and there, but if when you look in the mirror, you're not going to see much change whatsoever. And I think for me, it was getting through that where I had myself covered like all the time. I was like, I know this is going to work because it's worked for so many other people, like my plan and what I've
Hmm.
set out. Like I can't be distracted by what I see. So I had to
Yeah.
stay covered even at at the gym because I hated feeling small and all that. So within the first month or so, you don't see enough body fat loss yet, and your muscles are depleted because your carbs are lower. So you're in this like awkward skinny fat stage
Mm.
that you're
Yes.
like, am I even doing the right thing? And this is where most people they hit this wall. It's like around the 4 week mark somewhere in there, especially if you have some extra muscle. Men are the worst at this. Like women can kind of get through it, but us guys are the worst at this because we want to feel big or we want to be
Yeah.
lean, but it's right in there around the 4 week mark where it's just like, man, I look terrible, compared to what I used to. I don't fill out my shirt like I did, and I can't even see my abs yet really. And so I think that was a really tough piece for me mentally. And I think for me, just surrendering all to the Lord during this process, that's something I feel like it's my unfair advantage compared to, other people that don't know the Lord. I mean, we could talk about this, and just inviting him into what I'm doing because like he is, as a good father wants to enjoy giving gifts to his children and what they want to do, things that are exciting. Like all of us have gifts, all of us have things that we enjoy, like as far as
Yeah.
hobbies or the work that we do, the work that we put forth. Like I believe it was this mentality shift that like the father loves seeing his children excited for what he's given them, right?
Hmm.
So this type of mentality has been, it's grown over the years. But during that time, when I was dieting down, I think it's staying connected with the Lord and seeing the big picture of this. Like, yes, I want to get lean. Yes, I want to, achieve these different things. But if I realize that my strength is not from myself, it's from Him, I can surrender that over. It's like, Lord, I need you today. How many times I sat in my car like for 5 to 10 minutes outside in the parking lot before walking into the gym just to get my mind right. Like,
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many times that happened, especially towards the end when you're tired, when you're depleted, when your strength isn't what it was before, and you're getting through the process. Like, I had to pull up my phone, get on YouTube, watch motivational videos of like lifting, get in prayer, like surrender it over to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, I need you to spot me on some of these things because it's gonna be tough. It's like I think those getting through those different periods. I'd say that 4 week period was the first hurdle of getting over, and then the last few weeks is when it really starts to show up. But it's like I said, my goal is to have great workouts the entire time. If you're having terrible workouts at the beginning because you're lacking energy, you're probably not eating enough. You're probably lacking micronutrients and minerals and all sorts of things like that. But when you get to the end, it's not healthy. Like let's be real. Like when you're getting down to that lower body fat percentage, it just is what it is. The last like 2 maybe 3 weeks, you're gonna feel terrible. Because
Yeah.
you're pushing your body into this realm that it's not meant to stay in. So you have this small
Hmm.
window of like, I'm going to feel terrible, but once I get to show day and I start to fill out, I'm going to look insane. And that's what
Yeah.
happens, when you have it like that. But it can't be sustained at that lower body fat percentage. And the people that do it, their body is screaming from the inside, whether you know it or not. It is. So.